Good day, sir. I am Dalton John A. Palma, and I will be reporting what is ethics. But first, let me explain to you what is ethics. So let's get started.
Ethics are the principles that guide us to make a positive impact through our decisions and actions. We can think of ethics as the principles that guide our behavior toward making the best choices that contribute to the common good of all. Ethics is what us to tell the truth, keep our promises, or help someone in need. According to Hanson in 2019, there is a framework of ethics underlying our lives on a daily basis, helping us making decisions that create positive impacts and steering us away from unjust outcomes. Aside from it, ethics is a study of questions of morality, the search to understand what is right, wrong, good, and bad. In addition to that, a philosophy that systematically studies moral ideals and goals, motives of choice, and patterns of good and bad conduct, meaning your actions will depend of how will other people respects you as a human being, because each action you made would results on what consequences you will encounter in the future. On the next question, how does ethics differ from morality? Ethics are the rules you abide in order to remain within a community or profession. Morals are your personal values that run to the core of your very being. Depending on your profession, it's possible for your morals regarding a certain matter to be stricter than the code of ethics for the same issue. Like in a wider explanation, ethics are usually associated with a practical set of rules that are to be followed in a professional setting, such as code of ethics in medicine, law, business, whereas morals refer to the individual's personal principles. In general, morals are considered guidelines that affect individuals, and ethics are considered guide spots for entire larger groups or communities. And according to Brittany in 2021, ethics are also more culturally based than morals stated by. In addition to that, while ethics and morals related to the right and wrong, and the key question is not what policies would be morally justifiable in general, but what would be justified as coercively enforced law when citizens reasonably disagree about the value at stake. For example, in a workplace, in order for you to be called as professional, you usually follow the rules and protocols in your workplace because that is a policy. Always arrive on exact time to avoid some warning offense from your company. But sometimes there's a tendency that you forget the call time, that's why you arrive late on your meetings. This scenario shows that you're incapable of arriving early on time means that your morality affects how ethical person you are. In a short, you're being irresponsible employee sometimes. And in the last question, what are the different moral ethical theories? In the past decades, a lot of philosophers and authors created an articles to really emphasize and distinguish of how the society would know their kind of ethical moralities they have. As I've gathered some online articles in the past years, according to James in 2021, that each theory emphasizes different points and different decision making style or a decision rule, such as predicting the outcome of following one's duties to others in order to reach what the individual considers an ethically correct decisions, which is very similar for what Flynn in 2020 stated in his own article about bioethics in moral ethical theory. And sir, as far as I remembered in our last topic in the last sem of ethics, the moral ethical theory employs a vital role for decision making guidance, emphasizes aspects of an ethical dilemma important to them and leads them to the most ethical correct solution. And these are some of the moral ethical theories that I've gathered online. The beneficence. It guides the decision maker to do what is right and good. This priority is to good makes an ethical perspective and possible solution to an ethical dilemma acceptable. In other words, this ethical theory achieves the greatest amount of good because people benefit from the best. Next up, the least harm. It deals with situations in which no choice appears inbeneficial. In such cases, decision makers seek to choose to do the least harm possible and do not harm to the fewest people. And respect for autonomy. It is an extension of the ethical principle of beneficence because a person who is independent usually prefers to have control over his life experiences in order to obtain the lifestyle that he or she enjoys. Another part of moral ethical theory is justice. This principle states that decision makers should focus on actions that are fair to those involved. This means that ethical decisions should be consistent with the ethical theory unless extenuating circumstances that can be justified exist in this case. And the deontology plays a vital role in this ethical theory because that person will follow his or her obligations to another individual or society because upholding one's duty is what is considered ethically correct. And utilitarianism, it states that one's ability to predict the consequences of an action when a utilitarian choice that yields the greatest benefit to the most people is the one that is ethically correct. And rights is established by a society are protected and given the highest priority, and rights are considered to be ethically correct and valid since a large population endorses them. Lastly, we have the virtue. It explains when you judge a person by his or her character rather than by an action that may deviate from his or her normal behavior. It takes that person's morals, reputation, and motivation into account when rating an unusual and irregular behavior that is considered unethical. And lastly, according to Hartner in 2020 article, yet such theories often seem to lack the resources needed to evaluate the broader context in which moral dilemmas arise, which may cause them to encourage moral complicity.
So I do hope that you've enlightened with my discussion, and I hope that I explain it very well. Thank you, sir, and God bless.